Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here. It's Sunday, so welcome to Commissioner in a Car. This is the Vote by Mail has been counted, so what's next edition. First and foremost, it's Sunday, so go Bills. All right, got that out of the way. So this week, a wrapping up of what's happened at the Board of Elections this week. And remember, I'm doing these Commissioner in Cars on Sundays as kind of a wrap-up of what's happened and a preview of what's next, either at the Board of Elections or in the world of politics or Onondaga County or whatever. This is what happened at the Board of Elections this last week. We had our final scans of the vote by mail ballots and affidavits. So we had about 1,100 vote by mail ballots that came in on the Monday before Election Day to the Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays after Election Day. So 8 days after Election Day, Wednesday, this last Wednesday. As you know, in New York, vote by mail ballots have to be postmarked on Election Day, but they can be received up to 7 days after Election Day. And because that 7th day fell on Veterans Day, it actually went to the 8th day, which is the Wednesday after Election Day, which was the 12th, this last Wednesday. So we got, and because we did a scan the Sunday, we did it the Monday before of all the ballots received the Sunday before Election Day, and those were part of the election night results. But we still had 1,100 or so vote by mail, either absentee or early vote by mail ballots that were properly postmarked, either deposited on Election Day or postmarked on Election Day, but it took up until November 12th to get there. Now, most of those came in within either Election Day or the day after or a couple days after. But we did have some that were coming from across the country that took all that time to get to us. And so we had 1,100 of those. But we also had about 700 affidavit ballots. Affidavit ballots are people who presented themselves at early voting or during Election Day that were, not registered in the book and or not properly registered in the book. That's what most of the affidavit ballots are people who have moved, but we have their wrong address. And for them to get the proper ballot, they have to do an affidavit, which changes their address to the new address, but we have to verify that after Election Day. We did that, and so another 700 ballots were ruled good, and they were part of our last scans that happened on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It took a little time to get through because even though there wasn't that many ballots, there's still 450 election districts in Onondaga County. There's a lot of election districts, and you can't just throw them all through. You have to throw them through by election district, have the proper target card. You have 2 different types there, vote by mail and affidavits. So that was a lot of work to just get all that done. If it's not necessarily about the number of ballots, it's about the number of election districts and the number of ballots that it takes for us to get that scanning done. So the scanning got done about Friday, mid-afternoon Friday. We did updates every day, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, of everything that was scanned to keep as transparent as possible with you. We also, had cures coming in that are, people who we ruled their vote by mail ballots no good, and so they're sending their cures back. But we got that done, and the results, still unofficial results, are up on the website at onvote.net. So once that was done, we could then determine the write-ins, or the races that are going to go to, not the write-ins, I'm sorry. We can then determine the manual recount races. On election night, we had 4 races that we had identified that were possibly going to need manual counts. And what I viewed that as were races that were either within 20 votes or I'm sorry, I look at it when I'm identifying the targets I look at about 30 votes or 1%. And why do I have that range? It's because all of these vote by mails that come in after election day can change the results. So I get like I go through all the results on election night and I look at the races and say if they're within 30 votes or 1%, they could eventually fall into the manual count race. And what New York says is that any race that is within 0.5% or half a percentage point or 20 votes has to have the ballots for those races manually counted. That means physically looking at the ballot to make sure that the proper winner is identified. And we've done a lot of these here in Onondaga County. I've done one every year since 2022, almost every primary since 2022, because there are some races that fall into these categories. And of course, we've had the two big races that we've done, the Senate District 50 in 2022 and the county clerk race in 2023, which were like 90,000 ballot hand counts. This is not going to be that. So we identified 4 races: Cicero Town Supervisor, Onondaga Town Councilor, Onondaga Town Justice, and Solvay Third Ward Trustee that we're going to probably be within that range. What we have here is that after the 1,800 ballots were scanned and cast, we were able to determine only 2 of those races are going to come down to an actual hand count. The 2 races that were not part of the hand count was Cicero Supervisor. Rob Santucci. It now leads that race by 41 votes, 0.68%. So it separates it over the 0.5, and we do not. There are no ballots out there, or there may be 1 or 2, and I'll go into that in a second. But there are no ballots out there that could actually move this to within a hand count. And then Onondaga Town Justice Pat Britt. He's the incumbent. Rob Santucci was a Democrat who flipped the seat to a Democrat and beat the incumbent. But Onondaga Town Justice Pat Britt, beat Florian Bruno by 56 votes. It was 0.99% at the end of the day. So it was just within that window of me looking at it and saying it's a maybe, but because it's over 20 votes, because it's over 0.5%, it stayed out of the hand count. What is in the hand count? Onondaga Town Council, Martin Brown, the Democrat, trails Lisa Goodwin, the Republican, by 16 votes. That's out of almost 6,000 votes cast. I think that's like something like 0.12%. So it's very, very close. And then Solvay Third Ward Trustee, out of about 600 votes cast, Mr. McVicker trails that race. The Democratic incumbent trails that race by 13 votes. So that's well over the 0.5%, but because it's under 20, we do have to hand count those races. Again, we don't expect many ballots to come in. We still have, on Monday, is the last day for military ballots to be received. It's also the last day for cures that we have sent out. We don't have any cures that we have sent out that has a good date past Monday. So Monday is probably the last day we're going to add any, if we add any at all, to these races in traditional sense. But there's still one other thing that we have to do, and that is we have to canvass all the write-in votes. And you may say, well, the write-ins, what does that matter? It's other people. That's not necessarily true. We have noticed over the past 10 years, 15 years of, actually, it's now we're looking at about 17 years of doing paper ballots in New York, that people still don't get the fusion voting aspect of New York. And sometimes they would fill in a bubble of a candidate, but see the write-in box below and still write that person's name in. The machine would count that as an overvote because it would say, this vote doesn't count because that's casting a ballot for 2 different people in a race that's won. But it's actually the same person, and the courts have ruled, and This New York State Board has given us guidance that we should look over all the write-ins that are done, which we do anyways, by the way. We canvass the write-ins. They're usually part of our certification, which will come up later this month. So we always give credit to the write-ins for the votes cast, despite them not winning, or in many cases not even coming close. But that doesn't mean that they don't, they're legitimate votes cast, and they are cast in the way that the voter wanted them. However, we have to canvass these write-ins and look for, especially in these close contest race, anybody who did a write-in for a candidate that appeared above and they filled in that bubble above where the machine counted it as an overvote. We need to now count it towards that person. So that could actually affect Martin Brown and Mr. McVicker, who are they're trailing. They could have some of those votes in there. Of course, Lisa Goodwin and the guy ahead in the Solvay Third Ward trustee race, it could be for them too. So these numbers aren't final, and this is why we can't just proceed to a hand count days after an election. We have to go through. We have to wait for all the absentee ballots to come in, but then now we have to do this other step too. So it takes some time. So that's where that's where we're at. We will certify this election on November 29th. So that's 2 weeks away. Right? Today is I forgot to check the date before I got on here, but yeah. Oh, today is Sunday, November 16th. So 13 days away from today. The Saturday, the 29th. That's the Thanksgiving Saturday. We usually traditionally we don't have to do it that day. That is the last day to do it. We usually traditionally try to get the certification done by the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, so we don't have to bring staff in over the weekend, and we can be done with it. That is still our goal. And I don't see anything really getting in the way of that. So the hand counts will start on December 1st. And so we certified November 29th. Hand counts start on December 1st. And then if anybody goes to court because of those hand counts, that'll happen after that. So we still got a lot of work to do. We're not done. And we won't be done for quite some time. So this next week, we're going to start on the write-ins. That's where the Board of Elections is going to go. Now, now that's the wrap-up of the Board of Elections. There's been a lot of news this week regarding the Democratic takeover of the Onondaga County Legislature, and the 10 new members, well, old and new members, got together and had a little bit of a surprise, but they have announced their incoming chair and majority leader of the legislature, and they made history. For one, it's the first time ever that either of these positions are held by women, but also a woman of color for majority leader. That's Nordisha Hernandez. She was the minority leader. She will now take the majority leader role, and incoming legislator Nicole Watts will be the new chair of the legislature. This is very surprising. I think many of you may remember that Nicole Watts didn't even win on the Democratic ticket. She's a Democrat. She's absolutely a Democrat. There were 2 Democrats in the race, but because the Republicans threw off the Democratic line and tried to, well, I'm just going to say, they tried to steal that election by playing games and throwing someone off the line and then trying to win the race that way. But Nicole Watts was endorsed by the Working Families Party. Kenyatta Callaway was, I hesitate to use the word endorsed by the Democratic Committee because the Democratic Committee never held a vote for endorsement. She was the choice of the vacancy committee for the petitions that were thrown off the ballot, and so thus not technically illegally, the vacancy committee didn't exist. But she continued on and had many supportive Democratic lawmakers and went in an independent route, as did Nicole Watts. She got the Working Families line and an independent route, and then Nicole was overwhelmingly I think she got 60% of the vote. Despite it being a three-way race, that's an overwhelming victory. And obviously, the people of the North Side wanted Nicole Watts in. She's always been a Democrat, and the Democratic colleagues decided that she was the one to lead them. That's your choice. That is, and I know Nicole. She's great. I think she's going to do great things for Onondaga County. And, there's a lot of questions about how the Democratic legislature is going to interact with the Republican county exec. There's also questions about whether the Republican county exec is going to be able to interact with the Democratic county legislature. So while it's 10 votes to 7 now, it's not a veto-proof majority. So the Democrats aren't going to be able to do exactly what they want anytime they want. That being said, they're going to be able to pass some legislation and make changes to the legislature that a lot of people have wanted. I'm excited for the future of the Onondaga County legislature, of which controls my budget and in my employment. So I'm always supportive of the Democrats on the county legislature because of that. So but also I think they're going to do great things. So that was the biggest news outside of what's happening at the Board of Elections this week. We will now, this next week we're going to be canvassing the write-ins. So next Sunday we'll talk about how that all ended up. I'll kind of do a little deep dive on like how we canvassed those write-ins, what races had the most write-ins, and also if any of those weird writing in for somebody who's already on the ballot but also circling in affected either of the two hand count races. So that'll be next Sunday's Commissioner in the Car. And I'm sure there'll be more interesting things to pass along in the world of politics as well. So obviously the government shutdown ended. We talked about that last week, so I'm not going to go into that anymore. But that's where we're at. You can follow along at dustinzarny.com, where I post all my news and content updates, as well as that's about it. Sorry, a little tired. Or all my social media feeds will have this on it. So like and subscribe. And thank you very much for following along this election season. But it's not over for us, and it's not over for, we got about 2-3 weeks worth of work here before we can start moving on to 2026, which will be here before you know it. So thank you very much and enjoy your day. Bye-bye.